Okay, good morning everybody. So I will present third of my lecture, is it? In the your schedule, the title is quality assurance. But I think because most of the lab now apply the quality management system, so I will present the quality management system rather than the quality assurance because quality management system is more broader than the quality assurance. So with that, I continue my lecture. Okay. So as introduction, quality management system is an important aspect of managing the quality in industry and laboratories nowadays. And the definition, it is coordinated activities to direct and control an organization with regard to quality, conformance to the requirement of users of or customers, and satisfaction of their needs and expectation. So traditionally, uh, it is a quality. The quality management depends on QC and QA, quality assurance. But nowadays we use the quality management system. So why do we need to apply the QMS in clinical laboratory? First, most of clinical medical decision is based on laboratory test result. So about 70% of medical decision is based on laboratory test result. And remember the pre-ethical, yeah, pre-ethical, analytical, and post-analytical phase that I have mentioned in the previous lecture. So for analytical phase, we apply IQC and EQA to make sure there is no or less error to produce the patient result. However, there are many errors that could happen in the pre-analytical and post-analytical phase that could lead to mistake in producing the patient result. Ironically, the post-analytical, the pre-analytical phase, the pre-analytical phase contains 62%, and post-analytical phase is 23%, which is higher compared to error in analytical phase, only 15%. So this diagram shows the error that happened in the lab, the study done in 2009. Remember, the EQA may show that the error that had happened when for all cycle of the test. However, QMS is more advanced that it could avoid the error from happening. So that's the benefit of applying QMS. Okay. Second, laboratory is a complex system involving many steps of activity and involve many people. However, those components must be performed properly. Therefore, laboratory need a system that guide and control the entire system of the laboratory, which cover the pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical. So I go further on the laboratory cycle. The pre-analytical phase. The pre-analytical phase occurs first in the lab process. This phase may include specimen handling issues that occur even prior to the time the specimen is received in the lab. Important errors can occur during the pre-analytical phase with specimen handling and identification. In analytical phase, this phase includes what is usually considered the actual laboratory testing or the diagnostic procedures, processes, and products that ultimately provide results. And for post-analytical phase, is the final phase of the laboratory process. This phase culminates in the process of a final value, results, or in the case of histology, a diagnostic pathology report. Okay. This diagram show the activity detail in pre-analytical phase, analytical phase, and the post-analytical phase. So it start with the physician meet a patient, then the physician clerk the patient asking problem and clinical history, and the physician decide what possible investigation that need to be done. And one of it, the laboratory diagnostic. He or she will request the test, and nurse need to prepare the patient and do the specimen collection. Nurse then need to label the specimen accordingly and send the specimen to lab. Specimen will be received in the lab. The MLT, the technologists, need to do specimen preparation prior analysis to the specimen or sample. And please take note that most of the diagnostic tests need verification before can be applied to the analytical activities. After obtaining the result, the laboratory activity enter the post-analytical phase. In this phase, the result need to be entered into the patient report. Patient report then will be sent to the related physician via manually, maybe the hard copy result and by hand or telephone, and recently nowadays by electronic. So physician need to interpret the result to decide what treatment need to be done in the to the patient. So, throughout the activities in the diagnostic laboratory, various errors can occur. So, these are the errors that could happen in these three phases. So, I hope that you could read it by yourself, and please memorize it, okay? This is the error that could happen in the analytical phase and post-analytical phase. And the third reason is why we need QMS. It will give a huge impact. The lab error will give the negative consequences of the laboratory, because it will give the produce the wrong result, inaccurate, which lead to the inaccurate diagnosis or treatment, and then it could lead to the uh, patient complication, yeah, increase patient length stay in the hospital, delay treatment and death. And also it can give the negative consequences to hospital or organization if the lab produce wrong result. It can cause a loss credibility, and therefore the hospital will get less customer. It will increase the cost, increase waste, decrease the profit. Maybe the patient will summon or take legal action to the hospital. And the worst thing, the hospital or organization could be terminated. So, please take note that the negative consequences give huge impact on the patient, relatives, hospital, and organization. And last but not least, it is number 5. It is Malaysian regulation for clinical laboratory and hospital to adopt QMS. So, and recently, the clinical laboratory supplier also must adopt the QMS. So, if we look into the product from the laboratory, this is the quality expectation in provider, receiver, and organizer. Receiver meaning that, provider meaning that the staff hospital or lab staff, which is include lab staff. Re- Receiver is the patient and their relatives or family, and organizer is the hospital or institution top management. So this is the quality expectation from the provider, receiver, and organizer. So I hope that you could read it by yourself and please memorize. Yeah. So for the quality, it also got the orientation. So previously, the quality is based on the manufacturer or that organization expectation itself. So meaning that that manufacturer or organization set its own quality based on its need. But recently, most of the quality is based on the customer or user satisfaction. So it is more to the customer orientation. So QMS is an evolving concept and newer initiatives are being developed and adopted into clinical laboratory. Nowadays, we use the lean production or Six Sigma. It is the latest quality criteria which focus on eliminating waste and improve productivity, which it can reduce the cost, increase profit, competitive price offered to customer. And now also it include the risk management of one of the its component in the quality. So, quality management system for clinical laboratory was developed from the principles and concept of total quality management and Deming concept, which is TQM focus on users or customers, and Deming focus on improved quality that will reduce cost and increase advantage. Therefore, there are 7 fundamentals of total quality management system or quality management system. So we go one by one. First, it is the customer focus. Okay, it is customer oriented. So QMS emphasize a service based on customer need. Therefore, laboratory diagnostic should be able to deliver product or service according to customer needs. Lab can open communication channels with clients, and this way lab can develop two-way communication so that both lab and customer can understand each other. Lab also can assess customer satisfaction level via interview, questionnaires, or meeting. So all customer feedback should be documented, analyzed, and used for process improvement. Remember that the lab customer are doctors, physician, and nurse, not patient and their relatives or any outside citizens. Okay, so please be remember that the lab customer are doctors or physician and nurse, not patient. Okay, and second, it is continuous improvement. It should improve the system or work process from time to time, which is the QMS should able to identify and correct problem and avoid it from occurring again, and identify and improve any risk that could happen, so it should avoid the incident from happening. Third is employee empowerment. The effective management of lab staff is crucial because they are the most important lab resource. So staff need to be trained, develop integrity, ethics, motivation, and understand the need of quality. All these criteria should enhance staff professionalism. And number 4, quality tools. It is used to monitor the effectiveness of quality implementation. Quality tools can be used to manipulate output data to identify, weakness and or areas of improvement. So some monitoring requires data analysis. Some monitoring requires data analysis to understand the real situation. We also need these tools in order to implement the quality activity. Number five, product design. In terms of lab diagnostic, there are the items that meet customer needs, such as appropriate turnaround time, result report easy to understand by customer, mechanism of collecting and sending the specimen, and many more. So diagnostic lab need to identify the item and make it as key performance index. So they should monitor it from time to time. And six, process management. It is the heart of TQM. So lab must make sure that all activity related to diagnostic and analysis need to be standardized among worker. The process also need to be appropriate to avoid error and mistake in producing the result. Therefore, there should be available document that describing the work process, which is we call it as SOP. I think during the COVID time you can hear the word SOP more common, yeah. So the records of work done must be kept in appropriate time as proof that the work had been done accordingly. And number seven, last but not least, supplier quality. So suppliers supply item or resources that necessary for laboratory analysis, such as analyzer, reagent, chemical, and etc. Therefore, it is important to deal with a correct supplier that give quality product, good advice and support, and in the appropriate time. Okay. So this is the quality QMS framework for implementing the QMS or managing the quality. It consists of quality planning, quality process, quality control, quality assessment, and quality improvement. So we go one by one. We start from the quality planning. It is part of quality management, which focus on setting quality objectives and specifying necessary operational processes and related resources to fulfill the quality objective. So the management should decide which quality management system that they want to choose lah. There are many QMS outside which they can choose according to their needs, and they need also to do the selection and evaluation of new methods and instrument, design the QC procedure, whether just want to use simple plus minus to SD, or they want to incorporate the level jamming, waistguard material, or they want to incorporate the new kind of monitoring the QC, which is QC Six Sigma, and also include the EQA. And the management also need to identify whether they want to implement any tools to implement their QMS, such as Gantt chart or action plan. And therefore they need to establish technical steering team. It is a group of staff that will execute the QMS. So for quality process, it is the policies, procedures, personal standard, and physical resources that determine how work gets done in the lab. So lab method manuals describe the standard operating procedure for producing test result. So the quality process will include the SOP, manual book, policies, and document of KPI. So this is the example of KPI. KPI should be able to a measure. Okay, so this is the example of a KPI. If you look the detail one by one of it, the provision of clinic advice, samples with delayed analysis, okay, staffing, policy implementation, POCT requirement, and ANE turnaround time. And the others that also we implement set as KPI is turnaround time and sample rejection. So KPI should be able to be measured and limit need to be set for acceptable, warning, and need improvement for laboratory performance workflow. Okay, so we go one example here, the A&E turnaround time. The lab set the A&E turnaround time of 1 hour. Yeah, you see here, percentage of sample completed within 1 hour. Yeah, for core investigation, and it said more than 98% of the sample that which can complete uh, 1 hour is acceptable. If 96 to 97 is warning, and less than 96 is need improvement, need to do the investigation and do the corrective action. So this is the example of the KPI that need to be developed by the lab diagnostic and be monitored from time to time. Okay, now we go on to quality control. It is procedures for monitoring the work process, detecting problems, and making corrections prior to delivery of products or service. It is product oriented. So for clinical laboratory, usually we use IQC and EQA. And we can use statistical quality control, example, Leverageni, Westguard, Martirol, and Sigma QC. So for quality assessment, it is a broader monitoring of other dimension or characteristic of quality, and the quality involves the totality of features and characteristics that bear on the achievement and satisfaction of customer need. So the other name of quality assessment could include audit, the assessment and report of turnaround time, temperature of room, yeah, fridge, freezer, staff competency, and number of sample rejected, etc. Meaning that quality assessment is the activity of assess the workflow performance from time to time or in interval time. Yeah. And quality improvement, it is determining the causes or sources of the problem identified by quality control and QA or from the audit. The causes of some problems can be determined by individual analyst or a team and provide structured problem solving for root cause and identify remedy. Example, implementing the new strategy to the previous problem or error in the work process or QC performance, and also risk management. Other QC framework, if you have happen to found it, for implementing the or managing the quality is the Deming cycle. Maybe most of you have heard about the plan, do, check, act. This is another QMS framework. This is also the plan, do, check, and act, and the identification, the characteristic, the details that include in the every aspect of the plan, yeah, plan, do, check, and act. You can read by yourself. This is the Burnet's PDCA process model for ISO 15189 QMS. So it divide the criteria in the ISO 15189 QMS into the plan, do, act, check, and act. Yeah. And okay, after we go through the importance of implementing QMS, the benefit, fundamental, and framework, we need to think what details need to be done in order to implement the QMS. There are many components need to be considered when implementing the QMS based on concept or fundamentals and in QMS. So, can you think that the uh, those criteria that need to be think about, that need to be considered in CLSI? Those components or elements are called as quality system essential. So, can you think the quality essential system that need to be considered? So, there are bodies which develop standard for QMS. For international standard organization, these are the bodies such as Internal Organization for Standardization. Usually we use the ISO, International Electrotechnical Commission, International Telecommunication Union. Yeah? And for regional area, these are the bodies that develop the standard. And for national region, in Malaysia, such as we use the Standard Malaysia Department. Standard Malaysia Department is the body that manage the standard and quality management system in Malaysia. And also this diagram show the bodies which develop standards for QMS in healthcare or medical laboratory field. Yeah. The one that I usually we use for US, we use the CLSI, which come from the US, and ISO, which is this one is international. So for CLSI, the QMS, it comes with two type of QMS, which is GP26-A2 and HS01AA. So this one, it is an application of a quality system model for lab service, and HS01, it is a quality system model for healthcare approved guideline. So usually for lab, which come from the CLSI, we use GP26. And for international organization for standardization, there are few QMS which have been developed by the ISO itself, the ISO 9001, yeah, ISO 17025, and ISO 15189. Okay, for CLSI, these are the elements that covered in the CLSI. You can read by yourself, which include the organization, personnel, equipment, yeah, information management, process control, purchasing and inventory, documents and records, yeah, occurrence management, assessment, facilities and safety, customer service, process improvement. So this is the big title in the CLSI. The details they have mentioned it in the manual book. Okay. And for the ISO, I have shown you types of quality management system which come from the ISO. So this is the ISO family of quality management standard. It starts with 9000 or 9001, and then it come out with the ISO 14000 for environment, and then it come out also ISO 17025 for reference laboratory, and eventually it come out with 15189 for specifically for medical laboratory. And recently, not very recent lah, quite some time, the ISO also produced the QMS, which focus on the medical device, which is ISO 13485. So this is the development of QMS. This is for medical laboratory. So for ISO 9001, it just include the quality management system, ISO 17025. It include the component of quality management system and technical requirement, and ISO 15189, which is specifically for diagnostic lab. It include the quality management system, technical requirement, and medical requirement. That's why for laboratory diagnostic, they need to use ISO 15189. But for any other than that, any other lab such as a reference lab or research lab, they can use only ISO 17025. So for QSE, Quality Essential System, System Essential in ISO 15189, it have 15 criteria for management. Yeah, 15 criteria for management. You can read it by yourself, and 9 technical requirements, which is most of the components are aligned with QLSI, Quality System Essential. So ISO 15189 is used in most country, but CLSI used only in US. That's why very difficult to actually we don't find any other country that use the CLSI except for US. That's why we found ISO 15189 most, is it? Or ISO 17025. And this after the organization implement the QMS, yeah, and below are the three type of recognition categories for institution that implement the quality. So this recognition will give by the certain bodies. Okay. So first recognition is certification, where the body gives a written assurance that the product or service of the institution meets specific requirement. Usually it is ISO 9001, 9000 or 9001. Accreditation, where the body provides a formal acknowledgement that an institution is competent in providing a service or product or producing a product. Usually it is under ISO 17025 or ISO 15189, and license given by a government organization in recognition of skill, knowledge, and training, allowing the institution to operate. Usually, the license is for manufacturer, yeah, for the pharmaceutical and many more. So, as not, accreditation is a strong recognition compared to others. Therefore, the lab diagnostic need to aim to obtain the accreditation. So, with that, I end my presentation and thank you for listening.